Yes, you read that title correctly. I am leaving Cars and Bids. Well, sort of. In today's video, we'll talk about why I'm leaving Cars and Bids, what I'm leaving Cars and Bids for, and how you can get involved if you'd like to. Normally in this part of the video, I would promote something, usually the car that I'm reviewing, but the M5 isn't being reviewed today. It's just kind of in the background of this video. But I am promoting something nonetheless, and that is my new website, which is KennanR, that's KennanR.com. Now we'll talk a little bit more about the website in just a little bit, but after you finish watching this video, please click the link in the description below where you can head to the website and check it out. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you very much in advance. So why am I leaving Cars and Bids? Well, right off the bat, I want to make sure that something is perfectly clear. I didn't have some huge argument with Doug, Filippo, and Shaw, nothing like that. It has just become time for me to branch out and do my own thing. But in order to understand why, we have to talk about my career in the automotive industry so far and why I feel it's time for a change. My journey begins back in Cleveland, Ohio, where I was born and raised. Now, I have always loved exotic cars. Since I was a little kid, they're what I'm most passionate about, and I have spent an inordinate amount of time gathering knowledge about them throughout my life. But if you live in Cleveland, Ohio, experiencing exotic cars and working in the exotic car industry, you're pretty limited in what you can do. There's not much there, admittedly, as well, it's a great state, but that's just not its core industry. However, since the age of about 11, I had been visiting the exotic car dealership Marshall Goldman, located in Cleveland, with my friend Ryan. We'd go up once a month, every month for many years to check out the cars that were there and talk with the salespeople that were there as well. When it came time for me to get my first real job, I had reached out to Marshall Goldman and wanted to see if they needed any help with the skills that I had. It turns out they did have a need in marketing specifically, and they hired me to be their social media manager and handle their digital marketing. And I did that for several years, starting in 2018. Working for Marshall Goldman was a dream come true for me because they had access to the largest collection of exotic cars of any dealership in the entire country. One of the most important things I got to do at Marshall Goldman was learn how to represent cars and photograph them. The photographer who handles this currently, his name is Doug Croxford, and he's been there forever, taught me how to do this. Unfortunately, he fell ill at one point and someone needed to take over the entire process, and that person was me. The result was I learned how to take really great photos of cars, and I learned how to, well, fill out listings to make sure that all of the pertinent information was included. Now, it was also around this time in late 2019 that I met Doug. Now, I'd met Doug previously, but we really hadn't hung out. I'd come out to San Diego to visit my friend Ryan because, well, I love it here, and I'd come out for the La Jolla Concours. Doug and I really connected that weekend, and he asked me tangentially, what do you want to do? You work for Marshall Goldman, but you live in Ohio, like, what's the deal? And I told him that I had identified two things. I wanted to live in San Diego, and I wanted to work for an auction company. Now, at that time, Doug was already thinking about Cars and Bids, and he went and told his wife that day, I think I found someone who can help us start this. And about 9 months later, when the business had started to become something, when the website had been built, I was the very first person that he called. And then I subsequently became the first employee. When I moved to Cars and Bids and moved to San Diego during the heart of COVID, my job was going to be writing the listings that were going to be on the site. I had a lot of control over how things were represented, and it was a huge part in taking on that and, well, building it to what you see today. Now, it was clear once we launched that we needed a lot of help in that area. We needed more people to do that. And so I was quickly transitioned to editor and helped train people on how to write things in the Cars and Bids format and edit the listings prior to them going live. I did that for a while, and then it became clear that it was time to move me into an even more senior position as the managing editor of Cars and Bids. This meant that I oversaw both the team of editors that would edit listings and the team of writers that would create them, and I owned the whole process. I determined how things were written, how things were phrased, the entire layout of the photo gallery. All of that was my responsibility. And I did that job for a while. That was tough because at one point I had over 30 people reporting to me directly, which was a lot to manage, as you can imagine. However, we eventually added Nate, who is the current managing editor at Cars and Bids, and he was tremendously helpful. And we worked together as a team to hone processes to make things even more seamless and to help ramp up training time, which was really important, especially as we needed more specialists as the company continued to grow. It was around this time, though, that it became clear that Doug couldn't do all the content himself. There was a need to have somebody else who could jump in and take care of some of the content too, make videos and travel when Doug wasn't able to, or frankly willing to, for certain cars. And as a result, I started making more content for the Cars and Bids YouTube channel, and that is where content started to become a major fixture of my day-to-day life. In addition to that, I handled all of the processing for the Doug cars that would come specifically for him to review for the website. And I have loved making content at Cars and Bids, but I have been at Cars and Bids for over 6 years now. And just like when I was at Marshall Goldman, when I made the transition to Cars and Bids, I felt in my heart that the timing was right. And I feel very similarly now to try something different. I am 31 years old. I don't have that many responsibilities. I have a lot of experience and some level of notoriety. So if I want to try something new, now is the time to do it. This is the time to do something on my own. And that is why I am launching KennanR, my auction representation services. Now, a lot of you will have noticed that I've represented several cars recently on behalf of other people. Most recently, an E39 M5, this Lamborghini Huracan Performante, a 986 Boxster S, a California T 70th Anniversary Edition, a lot of really cool cars. Some of those did belong to my friends, but other of those belonged to people who had reached out to me to help them represent their cars. And this all was to test a business case to see how well I could do it and, well, if people wanted my services. It turns out I can do it very well, and the answer is yes. People do want me to help their cars find new homes. And this new venture really combines my complete skill set, from everything I learned at Marshall Goldman, all of the exotic car knowledge I accrued, to helping build one of the largest online auction platforms in the world. Selling your car on an auction platform is not the easiest thing. Although Cars and Bids has done a lot of work to make it relatively easy, there's still a lot to it and a lot of nuance. In addition to making sure that the car is fully detailed and very clean, you also have to work with a professional photographer to make sure the car is imaged very thoroughly. And not only that, it has to be done at a very high quality level, and you have to make sure you get all of the angles right. You have to make sure that everything is done properly, and that takes a lot of work just on its own. But then comes representing the service history for the car, advising the client on what they should or should not fix prior to the car going to auction, being honest and transparent about the car, engaging in the comments for 7 days. There's a lot to it in order to make sure that your auction is as successful as it can be. And really, it comes down to representing the car very thoroughly. A lot of people who are novices just don't have the time or the skill set to do this. However, I have been doing this for a long time, and I feel that it's a lot of fun. I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing it, and, well, like I said, doing this for others, it just makes a lot of sense. Now, there are companies out there that exist that have proven business cases for this already, but I have a major strategic advantage that they don't have, and that is content. Not only on my own YouTube channel where I make videos for you guys to watch, but that brings me to my next point about Cars and Bids, and that I'm leaving. Sort of. I'm still going to be appearing in Cars and Bids content. They still want me as a face of the company, which I am more than happy to do. That means that I will still be on this car pod for the foreseeable future, and you will see my face on the Cars and Bids YouTube channel. So not much is really changing in that regard, which means that I can continue to promote cars that I bring to the site to sell there, which is a huge leg up on basically anybody else in the industry. Nobody has the megaphone that I do to help promote cars. Doug, of course, does this for cars that are live on Cars and Bids, and I wanted to emulate that because I really believe in the relationship between content and the product itself. So having that relationship dialed in is really important, and that is definitely something that I bring to the table. Now, on the topic of Cars and Bids, that is the platform that I want to sell on the most. Not only because I helped build it, but because it's really the easiest to use. It makes my life easier, it's simply better to use, and the post-sale support is unparalleled. Shout out to the post-sale team. And I have my eye fixated on very specific goals. There's a leaderboard that you can check out anytime on Cars and Bids that keeps track of various statistics. One being how many followers per user count that people have. But the one big one I really am interested in is dollar amount sold. Currently, I am number 62 on that list. I want to be in the top 10 by the end of the year. And based on some cars that I have in the chamber that will be coming to Cars and Bids shortly, I think that is going to be attainable. And that brings me to how you can help. Now, I have never asked anybody to subscribe. I've never asked anybody to like a video ever on any video that I've ever made. But what I would ask is that you continue to remain engaged with my content. If you like it, continue to watch it. I very much appreciate it. But if you want to help in a bigger way, if you or someone you know wants to take a car to auction, but maybe you don't want to go through the work of doing it yourself, I would be honored to assist you in that. Like I said, since the very beginning, my mission has been to help great cars find great homes. And if I can help you in doing that, I would be delighted and honored to do so. One last point that I really want to make, and I think this applies to anybody who's ever started a business, it's pretty scary. While yes, I am very excited to do it, of course, I realize the risk that exists in this. I live in one of the most expensive places in the country. I love my lifestyle, and this puts all of that on the line. But I feel in my heart that I'm called to do this. In discussions I've had with my family and with my friends, they all tell me that if I don't do this, I am going to regret having not tried. So at the very least, even if it isn't ultimately truly successful, I will at least know that I gave it a shot. However, I don't think that's going to be the case. I have had more fun doing these last auctions in the last couple of months than I honestly have had in the last several years. I've had an absolute blast, and I have a feeling that this is going to lead to somewhere much greater. I don't totally know where that is. I don't know what the future looks like, but I am really excited to take this journey, and I hope that you all will come along with me. And there you have it. KennanR is launched. Like I said earlier in the video, I am equal parts thrilled and terrified for this next part of my journey. But my mission remains the same as it has for my entire career. I want to help great cars find great homes. Well, not this one. It's not going anywhere. It already has a great home. But I hope that you all will join me along for my journey, and I thank you all in advance for your support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you very soon. Goodbye.